And, most of the people that are listening to this are veterans, they're entrepreneurs, they're both. What are some of the attributes that we've learned from the military that can serve us in the civilian sector?
Yeah, well, so we certainly develop attributes in the military, and I think depending on the discipline that you're in the military will depend on the attributes, right? So one of the things about attributes is that the list of attributes to be a Navy SEAL, for example, is going to be different than the list of attributes required to drive tanks or required to drive ships or fly airplanes or whatever. And so that's so the subjectivity actually matters. However, I will say that the military holistically, going through boot camp or any type of training, and the kind of that um, requirement to be able to operate in uncertain environments will always develop things like courage, will develop perseverance, will develop adaptability, will develop situational awareness. I think discipline is developed. I think self-efficacy is developed. And then hopefully, if you're in leadership, well, so all of the team ability attributes are developed in the military because you're so often part of the team. And I think if you're in a leadership position, hopefully those attributes of leadership are developed as well. But that's not for certain. There are some leaders in the military who are simply in charge. They're not leaders. And there's a difference between being in charge and being a leader, right? It often gets conflated, but it's not the same thing. Being in charge is a noun, and being a leader is a verb, right? It's a behavior, not a position. And so this, and by the way, you don't get to call yourself a leader. That's like calling yourself, funny or good looking, right? It's other people who get to decide whether or not you're a leader, whether or not they will follow you. And that's all based on the behaviors that you execute to allow them that decision. So
I love that. Like I seen a T-shirt once that one time said, "Heroes talk about themselves, but legends
totally,
get talked
yeah,
about."
totally. That's so true. That's so true. And as it is, so goes with leadership too. I always say if someone walks up to you and says, "I am your leader," run the other direction because they don't get it, right? So, and we all know that the great leaders in our lives, whether they be military, professional, personal, they are not people who designated themselves as our leader. They're people who simply behaved in a way that allowed us to say, you know what, I would follow that person anywhere. And all of us veterans can relate to this, right? Because we can think of times in our career where yes, there was a commanding officer, yes, there was a senior enlisted, but there was also that like E nothing over there that every time there's an issue, people went to him or her, right? Because they behaved like a leader, right? So leadership comes from people who say, I will follow that person. And it's not necessarily always the positional aspect of it.
Like I said, I was talking, with Brent and John, and they were talking about servant leadership. And there's certain people that I could say, that was in my career that I would literally run through a wall
Yeah.
if they would ask me to do it. And the biggest thing, I'm a big Zig Ziglar guy, and he always says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And caring about your team members, I think, is more important than anything, especially if you're in a leadership position. You definitely need to care and get to know your
Oh
people
yeah.
on your team.
Yeah. And they'll feel that too. I mean, they'll feel, I mean, you can't fake it. You can't fake caring. So, and how do you care for people? It's a behavior, right? And you spend time, you listen. So a buddy of mine always says, that, likes to say, and he's totally right, is that time is the currency of leadership. Because we all have the same amount. When we give it, we're never getting it back, right? And so when you give your time to someone in your span of care, and you listen to them, and you take time, and you show them that you are invested in them and their future and their success, and you got their back when they fail, that endows you as a leader in their minds. I mean, they will then choose you as a leader, and that's the real kind of juice of it. And I know I mean, I was always in charge of something as an officer in the Navy, right? And I know throughout my career, and I did a lot of leadership jobs to include commanding officer of a SEAL team. And I know that there are many folks who considered me a leader. And I know that because a lot of them said so. They said, hey, I really loved serving under you while you're commanding officer. You really helped me. But there's also a lot of folks who I was just the guy in charge, right? That was it, and it was because I wasn't behaving in a way that allowed them to make that decision. So so you're going to get both, and any leader needs to just endeavor to behave that way, and they will at some point turn around and see people following them.
Yeah, but that's funny. Like anytime, on social media, if somebody, friend requests me and I see the word influencer in their profile, I run it far, far away.
Yeah, it's an assumption. It's a pretty weighty assumption, I would say.
So the last two questions I have, because I appreciate your time, and I know your time is very precious and valuable. How do we get in touch with you? How do we get the book? How do we get in touch with all your courses, whatever you have going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the best place is theattributes.com, the website, theattributes.com. There you can find the book. There are links to buy the book. We have an assessment tool that we've created. So it's a free assessment tool. So you can go there and you can take an assessment on where you stand for the grit attributes, where you stand for the drive attributes, where you stand for the mental acuity attributes. I'm still working on the leadership and team ability assessment tools. Those are a little bit more complex, but people can go and take those ones for free. I've thrown some workbooks on the website. So if people want to know and learn how to develop each attribute, they can grab a workbook and start working on some attributes they might want to develop. So theattributes.com. And then of course I'm on social media, LinkedIn, and then Instagram are the two main places. So hit me up any of those places. And yeah, I definitely appreciate the support.
Now, the last question I ask everybody, because I ask 100 different people and I get 100 different answers. We're in such busy times, and we're in 2021 now. We're crazy, chaotic times. If I ask somebody to do, the average person to do something in 7 days, it's never going to get done. But if I say, Rich, I want you to do something in the next 24 hours, I want you to take an actionable step, you're more likely to do it. So if you know somebody that's struggling with their transitioning out of the military, or even their military career, what is something they can do in the next 24 hours to start the right ship?
So I'm a big believer in the concept of asking better questions. And just a quick dive into that. We are neurologically designed. Our brains are neurologically designed to answer questions. We do it unconsciously all the time. But if we take conscious charge of that and we lodge a question into our frontal lobe, our brain has no choice but to answer that. It just happens. And I've done it. You can do experiments all day long and just ask yourself any question and just take out a piece of paper and just start writing answers. So your brain's going to start coming up with answers. All right. We often do this the wrong way. We say, why does this always happen to me? Why am I so bad at this? Why are all these people out to get me? Right. We can take charge of this, and high performers always do this, right? They ask better questions, and they ask themselves, all right, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? And so if you are someone who's struggling and you don't know what to do, take some time and ask yourself some more empowering questions. And one of the first could be, hey, who's out there that can help me? And start making a list. And don't let yourself off the hook, okay? Because you'll come up with a couple answers and then you'll feel like you can't think of anything. Just keep on asking yourself, what else? Who else, right? There's so many resources out there. There's so many people who want to help out there. You are not alone. And you can find people to help you in under 24 hours. You'll probably do it within an hour, and so yeah. Stop for a moment, take some time, ask yourself get out a piece of paper and a pencil, ask yourself some empowering questions and start writing down those answers. And then you'll come up with an even better question and ask yourself that question, but take charge of the quality of questions you ask. I'm a big believer in this idea that that the quality of our lives is directly proportional to the quality of questions we consistently ask ourselves. And so if we take charge of that and consistently ask ourselves good, positive, empowering questions, it changes our lives almost immediately.
Wow. Guys, there you heard it from the man, the myth, and the legend. Rich, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so grateful that you took the time. And I appreciate you, and I consider you a friend and a family and a member now. If there's anything I can ever do to support you.
Well, thank you, Richard. Thanks so much for having me. It's been such an honor, and yeah, let's stay in touch. That offers reciprocal. So let's stay in touch, and thanks for having me on, and thanks to the whole audience, as teammates, as brothers and sisters, and fellow veterans, and even veteran supporters. We're all one big team. It's a pleasure to be part of that team.
Thank you, and have a
you as well. Thank you, Richard.
Blessed day.